Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Mui Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing.
Die My Love, directed by Lynne Ramsay.
Well, you and Harry have known each other your whole lives. Of course, you're gonna go a little loopy.
Oh, no, I mean you. After a baby. My mother went nuts. Jan lost it. I didn't feel myself for a while. But you'll come back.
So, this is the new Lynne Ramsay film that was showing at the BFI London Film Festival, and it had its world premiere at Cannes this year, earlier in May.
It's now in wide release as well.
Yeah, it's now in wide release. It's directed by Lynne Ramsay with a screenplay by Lynne Ramsay, Enda Walsh, and Alice Birch. It's based on a book of the same name, but in Spanish by Ariana Horwich. And essentially, it's about this character, Grace, played by Jennifer Lawrence, undergoing postpartum depression. That is like the base.
Yeah, honestly, it's just sad movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson, but also kind of hot in places.
Yeah, and I actually want to like counter on the sad bit. I didn't actually find it that sad. I found it
Okay.
infuriating. I didn't find the film infuriating. I found what it was trying to say about like the real world infuriating.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It feels, without getting into too much spoilers early on, like the way it's doing it doesn't help the message it's actually trying to convey, in my opinion.
I would say, in fact, that what it's doing and the message it's trying to convey are not that different, but the message you end up, or at least I ended up leaving with, and I guess it depends who you are. If you're someone who has a potential to get pregnant and bear a child, this film will have different meaning for you than was probably intended,
Yeah,
or with someone
definitely.
who doesn't have.
Someone who can't get pregnant, yeah.
Yeah. And just to kind of like lay the plot, essentially we start when Robert Pattinson's character Jackson takes Grace, Jennifer Lawrence, to his like uncle's house in random rural US, America.
Someplace.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this
I'm pretty
dilapidated.
sure, like, if you are in America, you can tell which state this is, but I had no clue
Yeah,
which state this is.
it's wheat fields, I guess. That's all I could tell, and I'm not really even sure they were wheat.
Yeah. Wheat fields, America.
Yeah. Basically, it's the part of America where there's nothing, like for miles and miles and miles, which is kind of the point. There's nature.
Which is basically just middle
Exactly.
America in general.
Exactly. And the setting is kind of important to the plot, I feel, with the kind of natural environment and the emptiness of the surroundings. But basically,
Yes.
yeah, this house is
The isolation.
exactly, the house is decrepit, it's dilapidated, it's not in good condition. Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson then have a baby, and that's where the film really starts. Once they have the baby.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I don't want to really give any spoilers, but basically, Grace clearly is going through a mental health crisis, right?
Yeah.
But it reflects in ways that are absurd. And you kind of go, okay, this isn't realistic though. Like, no actual human person would do that. And you may be right. But again, as people who haven't experienced postpartum depression, we don't really know whether actual human beings have experienced this or not.
Yeah, I found some of those things well done, right? So maybe like getting into some spoilers. I think like
Yeah.
I really like the depictions and like how it's presented of like her just wanting intimacy from what's Robert Pattinson's character's name?
Jackson.
Yeah, her wanting intimacy from Jackson and like not getting that, and that making her feel further isolated. And how it's never really, aside from like one or two lines of dialogue, it's never really gone into much detail of like Jackson's having affairs. But it's just that reoccurring new packet of condoms in the truck, which you're like, he's having affairs. And I found that part like silently kind of her acceptance of that well done. And she was doing that because, again, and that might be inference on my part, because she didn't want further isolation. That even if he was in very limited amounts there, he was still somewhat there.
100%. And again, going into some details without trying to spoil it, but I think isolation is a really big part of this, and so is the lack of attachment and connection that she feels, that Grace feels to anything in her life. And her acceptance, or rather her just like whatever understanding of Jackson's affairs, is in part her not wanting to let go of the one relationship she feels she has a real or kind of genuine attachment
Yeah.
in, which is why the ending, again, without trying to spoil it, means so much. Like, I was going to say the ending feels kind of like a cop out in some ways.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, but when you kind of think about it throughout the film, it's a consistent ending at the very least. Both consistent and kind of like a departure of like, you know what, just whatever.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to some of the details of the plot as well, and how kind of well they show this woman's kind of English word for it, but tension and not the tension, but the kind of just
What are you trying to say?
gin. You know what gin is?
Yeah, ache. Very much. It kind of just means ache, very honestly.
Yeah, but it's like a heightened ache, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, she gets increasingly like frustrated and like on
Exactly.
like her nerves get increasingly pushed.
Exactly. And I think that's best depicted when there's a dog brought in and the dog won't
100%.
stop barking and won't stop crying.
I don't think a
love
film
dogs.
has ever. Yeah. I don't think a
Yeah.
film has ever made me more annoyed by it. Like, made me honestly at the brink of just saying I might have hated that dog.
Yeah, no, genuinely. I love dogs, and I was not ready to hate on this dog right when they introduced him. But there is a certain point where the film so accurately represents the kind of frustration you feel when things around you are not going as they're supposed to be, and it's only you who's meant to fix them despite there being another person. Basically, what a lot of women and wives and mothers feel in a domestic setting. And it kind of really catches that with like a crying baby and a crying slash barking dog that won't listen, and a dirty house, and kind of it all piles up and builds up, and it gets the audience as well to like such a position of just wanting to scream.
Yeah, just like I need some catharsis right now. Like, it's so insane that, again, I have to keep spoiling this. It's so much. It's so like well done, built up. When she shoots the freaking dog, you're like, oh, thank God. Like, you under your breath, you're like, kind of thank God.
At least we're out of this misery.
Yes.
Right. So the film kind of it puts the audience through the same misery that is showing Grace to go through, which I really, really appreciate, because then it kind of brings me to the message that I received.
Wait, before you get there, I also want to say, like, and the reason it's able to do that so effectively is Jennifer Lawrence's performance, who is so good in this.
Oh, 100%. I was going to get to Jennifer Lawrence later, but not the way here. I think she delivers fantastically. Like, I've never believed a woman has lost her mind more.
Yeah, I think she's able to really hook you in such credible way. Also, like, whenever she has that big knife in her hands, it terrifies me every single time, because with doing so little, just able to tell you that she is on the fucking brink. Like, she's swinging on the edge and you do not want to like push her. And like in so many small ways, how she shows frustration, how she shows anger, how she like breaks down. I think Jennifer really, really delivers and really makes this film, like, despite its flaws, I think what I really remember at the end is genuinely most of her performance is what sticks in the film.
100%. And I mean, Robert Pattinson isn't kind of, he's like not a secondary, but he's kind of like a side character, even though he has kind of main character, like, tags or whatever. But he does such a good job of just playing this crummy, without a reason on a morally high ground manipulative husband, and he does it so well where you just want to believe him. You're just like, yeah, I feel for you, man. I really, really do. He kind of plays into that really well. And again, with both performances, I think it's the subtlety of their acting that really kind of shines
Yeah,
through.
I think with Robert Pattinson, he plays perfectly that type of person where other people really like him, and that grinds your gears even more because you're like, able to make other people like him, but you know that personally, he's sometimes just a piece of shit.
Exactly, exactly.
He's able to victimize himself really well, basically.
Yeah, and I think the kind of silent parts where they're not really speaking and they're just kind of the physical movement, I think, in this film, the way they both
Yes.
use their bodies is like, it's really, really like fascinating because their bodies are able to reflect the tension and frustration and aggression really, really, really well, which I think is like such a skill.
Yeah, 100%. Also, there's a section of this film which does revolve on Jennifer Lawrence and Lakeith Stanfield's like relationship as well. Which is done in such a way that's part of me is just like, is this even happening? Is this just an abstraction? It's like her daydreaming sort of. But I don't think it is based on like how in certain ways it is presented. But also like as much as I find it like her outlet or some way, and it makes you like empathize with her, and she's able to get that physical intimacy from somewhere. I think it also kind of just because it's not really done within it, like it's not tied up, it doesn't connect well with the end. It just left there as like this separate thing on the side. I think it doesn't do much for the plot, and at the end of the day, you just go like, yeah, that also happened, and I don't know how that really ties in that much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of it is framed in a kind of, this may not be real. This may just be her
Yeah,
psychosis, or this may just be like her hallucinating, which kind of makes sense for why it wasn't tied up or something at the end. But I agree, it still feels like, okay, there could have been a different way to maybe explain or show this particular point.
yeah.
So I 100% get that. Although Lakeith Stanfield does fantastically. I don't think he says more than like 10 words.
I'm always happy to see Lakeith Stanfield, Never will be upset to see
100%.
Lakeith Stanfield pop up.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that just kind of brings me to what I got out of it. And what I got
Yes.
out of it was that women or people who've given birth aren't taken seriously when they very clearly showcase or demonstrate signs of medical abnormalities. And by I don't mean abnormality in a bad way, I mean in a way that it's clearly they are going through a crisis, an issue or an issue. And it's just kind of disregarded. I think what I got
Yes.
out of this film, and maybe this wasn't kind of the point of the film's message or whatever, but it's basically the medical gaslighting and the kind of mental gaslighting that goes on towards AFAB people and their
Yeah.
kind of experiences. I think this film does a really good job of putting postpartum depression and psychosis on like a big screen because it's such a rarely seen thing. I think where it kind of falls short a little bit is because it's so over the top that some people might see it as comedy or unrealistic or kind of like a psychological thriller or whatever. But again, we're not hearing from the people who may have gone
Yeah.
through similar things, right? And I think one of the
Yeah.
best ways to kind of explain that is in the film itself, so many women tell Grace that when they had their baby, they kind of lost their minds for a few
Yeah.
months. And it's like, yes, but you can clearly see that she's not just lost her mind. She is clearly also experiencing a heavily depressive psychotic episode. So
Yeah.
the film it doesn't explain it, but it shows it very distinctly.
Yeah. I think part of her further like downsliding is also the part of like her not getting the support from women very specifically that she wants. Like and the only man she is really connecting with is again Jackson, Robert Pattinson's character, right? So I think when she is like trying to speak to Robert Pattinson's mom, Pam, or like again that one woman in the house party that I remember who she just
Yeah.
makes fun of. Yeah, and I feel like you're like she keeps going there to get that sense of like I need someone to get me or like someone to help me. And like they are also not able to do much for her. Although Pam, I feel, is the character that comes through the most in understanding what she's going through, but is also unable to really connect with her, despite Pam trying to some extent.
100%. And I think when Grace is kind of finally admitted to a mental health institution, it's both kind of like a relief and simultaneously it irks me when her therapist says, do
Yeah.
you maybe have like attachment issues or something? And it's like, well, yeah, that's distinct. That's very, very clear. She is unable to attach to anyone in her life or commit to anyone in her life, including the literal baby she just birthed. And there's like a lot of kind of psychological and kind of physical reasons for someone experiencing postpartum depression, especially if they're unable to connect to the child that literally came out of them.
Do you think that? Because I think one thing that really did think out with me was like, I was first scared that what is the film's going to do is because of her isolation and everything, she's going to take it out on the child or blame the child. But I think she does form a genuine bond with the child. I think the child is the only thing that honestly keeps her sane for most of the film or keeps her in some levels grounded.
But think about it. Is it though? Or is it just a need to want to connect to the child that's just been born that's driving her even more crazy?
So you're saying like that she's using her own like motherhood as a way to like kind of find a purpose. Like the motherhood is not coming from I need to.
No. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I'm trying to say is that if there is a lot of research to show that if a literal human being is born from you, right, you have given life, you are expected to naturally connect and attach to that life form.
Yeah.
But if for some reason that does not happen, there is a gap between what you think you should be doing or what you've been told you should be doing and what you are actually experiencing. So to try to make up for that gap, you can do whatever. I think it's specifically in Grace's case, you can keep telling yourself that, you know, you are attached to your baby. Your baby is perfect. There is nothing wrong with your baby. And at some level, you do believe that. I'm not saying she blames the baby for her kind of experiences. What I'm trying to say is that is exactly that. She doesn't want to blame the baby for it, which is why she is unable to understand what is happening to her. And then, of course, everything around her life, her husband, her lack of attachment to any women who can help her, her lack of attachment to anyone or any other living thing, except for perhaps the horse, for example, is what heightens that as well, which is why it's specifically postpartum depression.
Yeah, that part I do understand. Fair enough.
I think at the end of the day, this film just made me mad that we do not understand people who give births experiences. And I think that's a pretty decent response to this film.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I think, also like one thing that I want to like kind of shout out is also I think some of the cinematography is really beautiful and like abstractly mesmerizing. And like the wide angle close up, I think really just like stick with you, and like the fisheye-ness of it, I think is really well done and just like helps to create this sense of disorientation a bit, or like even when things are right, they're just a bit wrong. And I think that's cinematography just helps like add to that.
100%. And again, the frame of the film is also so tight and so small.
Yes.
So basically everything is meant to lock this and box this woman in.
Trap her.
Yeah, trap her, essentially. Yeah. I think it's very cleverly made, even though it has like a lot of flaws in kind of what it's trying to say and how it's trying to say it with the kind of tone it takes on.
Yeah, I think it's some of that abstractness in of itself that kind of distracts from the reality of it, or like how you're supposed to really take it out. And again, I personally will fully admit that I'm not someone biologically who can relate to this. So I think there's also a part of me that just will not get it. But again, and it doesn't have to be made for me. But then again, that is something that it's not able to connect with people who've not had similar experiences necessarily.
100%. Yeah. I haven't had similar experiences, but I am able to connect on a level of it just boiling my bones.
Fair enough. So yeah, those are our thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share it. See you again next time.
Bye bye.